Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I think we all have to remember what our goal is here, and that is that we want to clean up our sites as expeditiously as possible and not put more further impediments in the way with it. So if I could turn to Ms. Matthews on it with some questions. So my first question would be, are the provisions in this bill that we've talked, are they going to continue the pace that the EPA was implementing under President Trump, or are they likely to slow down the cleanup process and do less?
I think that they have some potential to slow down the cleanup process and to divert resources to something that isn't part of the cleanup process. So what I hear some of my other panelists talk about is that things need to happen and that there are impacts from climate change. And then, so the sites need to, the response actions at those sites need to address that. But having those financial assurance provisions is not doing that. It's going to put this massive program in place that will make tons of money will be spent on it, and resources at EPA will need to monitor it, and not just one time, but annually. It's a big program. There's a lot of work to be done for Superfund. Let's do the work.
All right, I think, and you just touched on one thing that Ms. Gooden said, that they don't have insurance on a thing. For those of us that come from the business world, understand that all of these petrochemical companies or all industries that are producing these have liability insurance. So I think she just misrepresented over the insurance provision with it. And further in my opening statement, I talked about at the pace we're on, we're talking about we could be as much as 100 years before we clean up the existing sites. And then we're going to be, as others have said, we're going to be adding more to this in the future. So my question back to Matthews again is, what would you recommend? How can we improve the existing program to expedite this cleanup, but without adding more bureaucracy, more big government? What's your solution to that?
Like I said in my statement, the Superfund program is now very mature. We have 40 years of experience, and there are definitely lessons learned where we can start to make some progress at streamlining some of the issues. The RIFS, the Remedial Investigation Feasibility Study Guidance, dates back to the 1990s. Certainly, we know how to do things better. One of the initiatives that the Superfund Task Force looked at under the last administration was adaptive management. Adaptive management is something that makes a lot of sense at a Superfund site, especially these complex Superfund sites that are certainly lagging and remaining on the list for a long time. In general, there are opportunities to streamline and to make decisions. One very successful program in the record corrective action area is it's called Record First. It's where parties get together, all the stakeholders, including the government, and discuss what's the end state vision, how are we going to get there, open up lines of communication where decisions are being dragged out, elevate the issues. There are opportunities to speed this process up.
It appears that instead of prioritizing the sites that we have now that was being done under the Trump administration, this legislation, it obviously intends to add more sites to the Superfund list. It could possibly, but possibly could be a problem in the future. So shouldn't we be focusing on the problems we now have instead of the hypotheticals? Is this another example of making perfect the enemy of good?
I think it's diverting the resources that we have and that we need to make progress. So to be focusing on operating facilities that are already subject to pervasive regulation and that are addressing these issues, to layer that with a financial assurance layer is not necessary.
Okay, in the just few seconds I have left, you heard the testimony from the other people and their positions. Is there something you'd want to clarify or correct, overstate their statements?
Well, I guess just that financial assurance isn't necessary for the these companies to operate responsibly. They are operating responsibly under this current regulatory regime.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired, so I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.